Okay, so this was probably one of my favorite episodes so far. Listen, I'm sorry if you hear a little echo. I'm in the hallway. Okay, anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so this episode starts off with Lois at the hospital with Marshall. She's talking to him, still taking Nurse Sexy Red's advice. She tells him Grotesquerie is taunting her. Nurse Sexy Red is watching and recording Lois's conversation. Lois tells Marshall she doesn't have a lead on the case. She's saying her goodbyes to him out of fear that Grotesquerie will get her before she gets them. Nurse Red is listening and accusing Lois of abandonment. She says that if she lives, that she's giving all of Marshall's books away. Lois is definitely going on a tangent and is clearly unable to focus during her alcoholic binges. Nurse Sexy Red utters that the hospital will have power of attorney over Marshall. It's almost a little weird that she's so obsessed with Lois and Marshall. We then see Father Charles at church, ooh girl, this gets so good, teaching a psycho class. Sister Megan is watching, lusting heavily after him, and girl, I get it. I guess those demons weren't released during her exorcism in episode 3. Father Charles goes to shower post-workout, and as he's drying himself off, we see Sister Megan the Stallion staring at that ass. And see, this is exactly why I call her Sister Megan the Stallion, cause she a hottie for real. Father Charles turns around to see her watching. He's clearly flattered. She brought him her latest article to approve. He reads the headline and instantly disapproves, saying that it's boring, considering it said that the police had no new leads. He was completely unimpressed and says that he expects more of her. What an asshole, right? Father Charles just cares about that profit, okay? He then gets all in Sister Megan's grill, breathes all down her neck and tells her not to worry, that the waiting is all a part of the process. And at this point, I know that Father Charles is on the red herring list, but I think it's too easy at this point, and I am ruling him out of my personal suspect list. It would just be too easy, too boring, as he mentioned. So they go on flirting with each other through scripture, pretty much, quoting scriptures that relate to the body, if you know what I'm saying. They're now in Father Charles's bedroom, and he gets up with the boner and closes the door. He continues to seduce her with scripture and unbuttons her clothes. He stands in front of her as she sits. She pulls his towel off. Damn, am I now the narrator for adult literature? She pulls his towel off, but says that fornication is still a sin. He's clearly wanting her to break, so begins kissing her wrist. He begins the sentence, "We are and we always will be." She finishes the sentence, "Sinners." He says, so fuck it. He begins kissing her neck, rips her shirt off, then her panties, and they get busy. Finally. I honestly love this for Sister Megan the Stallion, alright? So back at the hospital where Lois is heading out, she runs into Eddie. She apologizes for her actions. She wants to make it up to him by baking him a cake, but instead, he wants to go on what she called a date. And where is this date? An AA meeting. So Lois isn't managing and wants to go get food, aka alcohol. At dinner, Eddie expresses that he was an alcoholic who liked skiing. He then became a stripper in Alaska. He lost everything. Lois related to him, and he told her not to lose her dignity. That made Lois emotional. Eddie takes Lois home. When she gets inside, she calls Sister Megan. They go to the church. Sister Megan seems on edge after getting her back broke. Lois goes to the front to have a confession with Father Charles. She feels bad for letting herself and her family down. She also feels that something hellish is here, and Father Charles seems to relate. Lois feels helpless, like God has given up on her. Next scene is Lois arriving home. Merritt managed to get the box open that Lois took from one of the crime scenes. There were coordinates inside the box. Lois instantly calls Sister Megan. She then calls Eddie, saying she needs a favor and asks if he could come to her house. He arrives, which spoils my theory that Eddie is supernatural. I think the writers just wanted to fuck with us. You know what I mean? Okay, so she wants Eddie to look after Merritt while she works. Merritt and Eddie hit it off right away. Not really. No. Merritt is a hard ass, and rightfully so, okay? It's like, who is this big scary white man staying in my house? So Lois and Sister Megan are now on the road. Lois mentioned the show Good Times and how Florida and her family, much like Sister Megan, prayed to a white Jesus. Lois says she never understood that and believes your God should look like you. Later on the drive, Sister Megan begins singing. She sounds great. And my friend did tell me that this actress who plays Sister Megan is a theater girly, so it totally makes sense. Lois then begins singing. Sister Megan is emotional initially, but cheers up at the sounds of Lois's singing. They hold hands and they are vibing. It was a very sweet moment. Sister Megan then says that she feels like they've been set up as they head to this destination, almost like a horror movie. They arrive to this location that the coordinates led them to. It appears to be the middle of the desert. Sister Megan thinks that the killer has placed themselves in the darkest place imaginable, cut off from God and God's love. They've arrived to a fire pit. A truck speeds up next to them. A guy gets out and tells them they need to leave. Lois grabs her shotgun and tells him to put his hands up. His hands are up in the air. He says that there's been hurricanes in the area as he tosses them his wallet with his ID. He says he's Joe Ritter, a U.S. Geological Survey. He says the fire pit is a sinkhole over a natural gas deposit. He's curious as to how they knew about it. He says that he saw another car there earlier but didn't get to see the driver. They're back on the road. Sister Megan sees a figure standing next to smoke, waving. She says Grotesquerie is trying to scare them. They then encounter a truck that's seemingly been set to fire. There are firefighters and the road is blocked off. Because of it, Lois and Sister Megan had to go back to find a motel to stay in. On their way, they stop at a gas station. No one is there, so they get gas and Lois leaves money on the counter. She holds the money down with a snow globe that has the Last Supper scene inside of it. It belongs to the gas station. On her way out, a dog runs up to her. She pets it and then follows it to its owner. She runs into its owner, who seems to be the gas station owner. He's out back doing some construction. The guy says that these fires are a result of global warming. He tells her that she's safe on the road. She asks why he hasn't evacuated, and he says that there isn't anywhere to run away to. He then gives her a fire blanket. We see Sister Megan in the car watching a psycho video of Father Charles, girl. Lois taps on the car and Sister Megan quickly puts that phone down. Sister Megan has it bad for Father Charles, you hear me? They're back on the road and drive past a motorcyclist with a red helmet on. Sister Megan is feeling guilty and tells Lois that she and Father Charles fucked. Sister Megan thinks that because of this, that hell is coming for them all. She then screams stop, signaling Lois to hit her brakes as there is a figure in the middle of the road. It's a woman in her bra and panties, and for some wild reason, Sister Megan tells her to get in the car, and I'm like, girl, you don't do that. The woman starts screaming, he's coming! So Lois steps on that gas. Lois did not ask a single question, baby. She took off, okay? I love it. This was a great episode, and again, one of my faves so far. You know, I'm at a place where I'm not even trying to figure out the killer. I definitely don't think it's Father Charles. Other than that, I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm really just enjoying this show, and I can't wait for episode 5.